Hello, welcome to BEH 221 Resolution-Based Counseling Skills. Today we're going to cover the topic, questions that will open communication with clients. Questions can make the interview flow and bring out clients' goals and other critical information that might otherwise be missed. With questions, however, the leadership comes mainly from the interviewer. The client often responds using your frame of reference. Questions potentially can take away from client self-direction. Questions can help the client get them talking, or they can be so intrusive that the client wants to say nothing. So, generally what we're saying here is that you have to be skilled in how you question a client. We're not interrogating them in a prison cell. We're trying to get them to open up and discuss what issues have brought them to this particular stage where they need to seek counseling. Questions are an essential part of most theories and styles of helping, particularly brief counseling, career counseling, and cognitive behavioral therapy. So, if you have a particular therapeutic style that you prefer, questions are going to be used across the board. The employment counselor facilitating a job search, the social worker conducting an assessment interview, and the high school guidance counselor helping a student work on college admissions all need to use questions. There are two types of questions, open questions and closed questions. Open questions are those that can't be answered in a few words. Typically, open questions begin with what, how, why, or could. For example, could you tell me what brings you here today? On the other hand, closed questions enable you to obtain specifics and can usually be answered in a very few words. They may provide critical information, but the burden of guiding the talk remains even more on the interviewer. Use too many and clients may close up. They're going to feel interrogated. Closed questions often begin with is, are, or do. For example, are you living with your family? That's basically a yes or no question. So, too many of those yes and no questions can feel exactly like an interrogation. Questions that help begin the interview. With verbal clients in a comfortable relationship, the open question facilitates free discussion and leaves plenty of room to talk. Here are some examples. Number 1, what would you like to work on today, or explore, discuss, or talk about? Number 2, could you tell me what prompted you to see me? Number 3, how have things been since we last talked together? And number 4, the last time we talked, you planned to talk with your partner about your sexual difficulties. How did it go this week? So with these kinds of questions, you're looking for more than yes or no. You're looking for a free-form discussion. The first 3 open questions provide room for the client to talk about virtually anything. The last question is open, but provides some focus for the session, building on material from the preceding week. These types of questions will work well for a highly verbal client. However, such open questions may be more than a non-talkative client can handle. With a non-talkative client, it may be best to start the session with more informal conversations, focusing on the weather, a positive part of last week's session, or a current event of interest to the client. You can turn to the issues for the session as the client becomes more comfortable. So, at least in the beginning, with a non-talkative client, you have to build that trust element, that I'm going to get you talking so that hopefully it'll open the floodgates. Questions often, but not always, provide predictable answers. What questions most often lead to facts? What happened? What are you going to do? How or why questions can lead to a discussion of reasons. How did you allow that to happen? Why do you think that is so? Use why questions with care. While understanding reasons may have value, a discussion of reasons can also lead to sidetracks. In addition, many clients may not respond well because they associate why with a past experience of being grilled by someone. So, that why can really make people feel on edge, like they're being attacked for the choices they've made. Open questions help clients elaborate and enrich their story, and that's a really important part of the counseling experience. A beginning interviewer often asks one or two questions and then wonders what to do next. Even more experienced interviewers can find themselves hard-pressed to know what to do next. To help the session start again and keep it moving, ask an open question on a topic the client presented earlier in the interview. Could you tell me more about that? How did you feel when that happened? Given what you've said, what would be your ideal solution to the problem? What might we have missed so far? What else comes to mind? One of the following phrases often accomplishes the same result. Tell me more. And at times, silence with an open, supportive stance can keep the client speaking. And remember, our body language is directed to the client in an open way so that they feel they can tell us their deepest, innermost issues. And that is almost important as what we say. Questions can reveal concrete specifics from the client's world. The model question, "Could you give me a specific example?" is one of the most useful open questions available to any interviewer. Many clients tend to talk in vague generalities. However, specific, concrete examples enrich the interview and provide data for understanding action. Suppose, for example, that a client says, "Ricardo made me so mad." Some open questions that aim for concreteness and specifics might be, could you give me a specific example of what Ricardo does? What does Ricardo do specifically that brings out your anger? What do you mean by makes me mad? And could you specify what you do before and after Ricardo makes you mad? Closed questions can bring about specifics as well, but even well-directed closed questions may take the initiative away from the client. However, at the discretion of the interviewer, closed questions may prove invaluable. For example, using our previous Ricardo scenario, did Ricardo show his anger by striking you? Does Ricardo tease you often? Is Ricardo on drugs? If working with teens, a specific useful question, more often informative than those above, is to change the above to an open question. So, for example, could you tell me if any of your friends are on drugs? One of the best predictors that a client is using or abusing drugs or medications is to ask about what the peer group is doing. Questions like these may encourage clients to say out loud what they have only hinted at before. Stories presented in the helping interview are often negative and full of serious challenges. Carl Rogers, the founder of client-centered counseling, was always able to find something positive in the client. He considered positive regard and respect for the client essential for future growth. This is illustrated clearly in neuroscience research. Negative emotions and feelings are located primarily in the amygdala, deep in the brain. Positive emotions, developed later in human evolution, are located in many areas, but the nucleus accumbens sends out signals to the prefrontal cortex, enabling comments to balance the negative one. If it is the negative experience that is more powerful, think of how long it might take to recover from these, some of which we will never forget. So, in a nutshell, we have these negative emotions, and part of the job of the therapist is to help the client rewrite those negative emotions with more positive emotions. And the way we do that oftentimes is utilizing the narrative structure of therapy, having the client tell the story and put a different spin on it. Another option is to integrate positive psychology. Our lives are full of challenges, and the repeated hassle of thoughtless comments and put-downs can result in permanent memories that you will encounter in your counseling practice. This makes positive psychology, wellness, and therapeutic lifestyle changes all the more central to interviewing, counseling, and therapy. We strongly recommend that every session include time spent on strengths and positives. A client may come to you filled with a bucket of negativity, and part of our job is to help them see their strengths, help them see what they're good at, see their virtues, so to speak. So, commenting periodically on clients' abilities and drawing out stories of strength are important in counteracting the inevitable negatives we experience daily. Additionally, spiritual and family strengths are also an important part of helping the client recognize the positives that exist in their lives. So, let's talk about some of the potential problems with questions. Questions can have an immense value in the interview, but we must not forget how they could interfere with the relationship. Bombardment or grilling. These are too many questions, may give too much control to the interviewer and tend to put clients on the defensive. And again, that's where we get into that interrogation idea. Multiple questions. Another form of bombardment. Throwing out too many questions at once may confuse clients. However, it may enable clients to select which question they prefer to answer. So, you're dealing with not just them feeling interrogated, but they're now going to only answer the question they're comfortable answering. Questions as statements. Some interviewers may use questions to sell their own point of view. Don't you think it would be helpful if you studied more? This question clearly puts the client on the spot. On the other hand, what occurs to you as you think about improving your grades might be helpful to get some clients thinking in new ways. Consider alternative and more direct routes of reaching the client. A useful standard is this: if you are going to make a statement, do not frame it as a question. Why questions can put interviewees on the defensive and cause discomfort. As children, most of us experience some form of "why did you do that?" Any question that evokes a sense of being attacked can create client discomfort and defensiveness. So that moment when you're 5 years old and you broke something in the kitchen and your mother's like, "Why did you do that?" And you're like, "I don't know, it just happened," but you feel attacked. A cross-cultural example of how questions may be inappropriate. Now, in the United States, it is traditional that we answer questions, even probing questions. We're used to this kind of idea. But if you come from a different culture, questioning is often seen as rude or inappropriate. So if your life background and experience are similar to your clients, you may be able to use questions immediately and freely. On the other hand, if you come from a significantly different cultural background, your questions may be met by distrust and the client provides only reluctant answers. So you're literally pulling answers out of them. Questions place power with the interviewer. A poor client who is clearly in financial jeopardy may not come back for another interview after receiving a barrage of questions from a clearly middle-class interviewer. If you are African American, European American, and working with an Asian American or someone of Hispanic origin, an extreme questioning style can produce mistrust. If the ethnicities are reversed, sorry, a little typo there, the same problem can occur. So moving on now, we're going to talk about what happens when you are dealing with less verbal clients. Generally, in the interview, open questions are preferred over closed questions. Yet, it must be recognized that open questions will require a verbal client, one who is willing to share with you. Here are some suggestions to encourage clients to talk with you more freely. Build trust at the client's pace. A central issue with hesitant clients is trust. Extensive questioning too early can make the trust building a slow process with some clients. If the client's required to meet with you or is culturally different from you, he or she may be less willing to talk. Trust building and rapport need to come first, and your own natural openness and social skills are essential. With some clients, trust building may take a full session or more. Search for concrete specifics. Some interviewers and many clients talk in vague generalities. We call this talking high on the abstraction level. This may be contrasted with concrete and specific language where what is said immediately makes sense. If your client is talking in very general terms and is hard to understand, it often helps to ask, could you give me a specific concrete example? Draw out the linear sequence of the story. What happened first? What happened next? What was the result? Focus on observable concrete actions. What did the other person say? What did he or she do? What did you say or do? Help clients see the results of an event. What happened afterwards? What did you do? What did he or she do afterward? Sometimes clients are so focused on the event that they don't yet realize it is over. Focus on emotions. What did you think or feel just before it happened, during, after? What do you think the other person felt? Note that each of these questions requires a relatively short answer. These types of open questions are more focused and can be balanced with some closed questions. Do not expect your less verbal client to give you full answers to these questions. You may need to ask closed questions to fill in the details and obtain specific information. Did he say anything? Where was she? Is your family angry? Did they say yes or no? So that's it for today's presentation. If you have any questions, please contact your instructor. If you do not attend our school, please leave a comment and we will return it with an answer as soon as we can. Thank you very much and have a fabulous day.